Today is February 4th, 2020. My name is Joe Todd. This is an interview with Jimmie Pirtle in Broken Arrow, Oklahoma. Sir, where were you born?
Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Tulsa. When's your birthday?
8/4/45.
August 4th, 1945.
Yes.
Who is your father?
Ted W. Pirtle. Dorothy May.
Dorothy May.
Woosley was her maiden name.
How do you spell that?
Woosley.
Okay. You go through school in Tulsa?
Yes.
You graduated what year?
Nathan Hale, 63.
Nathan Hale. Mm-hmm. Who was your favorite teacher?
Arliss Olds. He was a woodshop teacher.
Why was he your favorite?
Because you could talk to him. You could communicate with him when you needed to, you know, and he was just a nice man, you know. In fact, he just passed away here not too long ago. Just a super nice guy.
Yeah. You played sports in high school?
No, I wanted to, but my grades weren't good enough at the time.
Okay. What did you do for recreation in high school?
Well, I liked to play basketball, and I used to play baseball with my brother and my best friends that I had at the time, and you know, we just messing around, you know, that kind of thing. And then give my brother a hard time because he did do good in baseball, whereas I didn't. So, and I guess that was about it. Girls, you know, that was the thing when you're 15, 16 years old.
What did you do after high school?
Went in the Navy.
When did you join the Navy?
I was communications.
No, when did you join the Navy?
Oh,
when?
1964, August 27th, I believe it was.
Why did you join the Navy or the Army, Marines, or Air Force?
Well, to be honest with you, my parents had a recruiter come and visit with me because I was starting to get into trouble, and they didn't want that to happen. So they got a recruiter. His name was Chief Bennett, as I remember, and convinced me to go into the Navy. I didn't want to go in the Army because I didn't know where I would be stationed, number one. And I didn't go in the Marines because I thought it was a little tough for me. And the Air Force, I didn't think I had the education to do it. So I went into the Navy, and looking at it now, I had a base. And that base was, after I got out of radio school and all that stuff, my base was my ship. And my base went to Hawaii and the Philippines and Australia and Hong Kong, and you know, it went everywhere. Whereas if you was on a base on anything else, you were there.
Okay.
That was, you know, that's the way I'm looking at it now. Okay. And I had convinced my grandson to do the same thing.
Where'd you go for boot camp?
San Diego.
Tell me about boot camp.
Let me tell you what I remember. I remember getting on an airplane, and we landed in San Diego, and they had us line up at attention outside the airport, loaded us on a bus, and put us in these barracks. And I guess we got in our racks about 1 o'clock in the morning, I want to say, something like that. And 4 o'clock in the morning, we're up. And we did you know, it's mostly exercise and marching, things of that nature. When I went in, like I tell everybody, I was 6'4", but I only weighed 140 pounds. Okay, but I gained probably about, say, 30 pounds by the time I got out of boot camp. And you had two different stages of boot camp. You had one where they called, I can't remember what the name of it was, but you was restricted from the rest of the base. And then you went, from there you went across it was a river, you might say, or a channel, and you're in another part. And they run you through the ship, you know, through this. They had a ship that was basically on land, but everybody got to, would, drill off of it. You do drills off of it and stuff. And we did, and I want to say it was M1s, but I could be wrong, at shooting ranges, and we did fire control. We went through gas chambers, and things of that nature, and I don't even remember how long it was. I've got all the books for it at the house, and I've got a lot of stuff at the house that has my memorabilia that I had, when I was in the service. Mm-hmm. And then after boot camp, they put us in temporary duty at doing different things. I worked public works for a while. I worked in the kitchen for a while, which I hated with a passion. Things of that nature. Mm-hmm. And then we went to radio school.
What's your most vivid memory of boot camp?
I would say getting out of it.
Tell me about your petty officers.
In boot camp?
Yeah.
He was first class. And again, I got a picture of him too. His name was Stetler. And nice guy. Mm-hmm. He would work with you. But he was meaner than heck when you didn't do right, that kind of thing. I do remember going, they did the shot thing, and I was a squad leader of, they had, I don't know, what was it, 5 or 6 across, and I was a squad leader, and we had I don't even remember what they call them. What they call it. Well, they called it the guy the head of the company. Mm-hmm. And then you had the flag bearer, and then you had the sergeant at arms kind of guy. And he was a tough guy. If somebody scared the heck out of you while you was at attention and you jumped, he'd come around and slap you in the head, which he did to me. I remember that. I've never forgot that.
So from boot camp, where'd you go?
I went into public works, doing grounds work, painting, and like we painted the bleachers on base that were on base, mm-hmm. and that was a chore, and we planted a lot of ice plant is what we called it along the beaches. Was for, I guess it was to retain the sand or whatever. And then I worked in the kitchen, for a while, and Then I went to radio school, which was right there on base.
Tell me about radio school.
Radio school, I can't remember the guy's name, but again, I got a picture of him too. He was chief, and there was 2 different classes, we were in the same barracks. And we went to classes, back then you had to know Morse code and all that kind of stuff. We had to learn all the letters of the alphabet, which I can't remember. I can remember maybe 5 or 6 of them, but that's about it. And we did basically we had to learn what they call transmitters and how to operate them, stuff like that. And just get prepared for wherever we was going to go, because we didn't know where we was going to go at the time. And it was, I just don't remember too much about it.
What radios did you train on in radio school? 390, they were called 390s. There was 390s, and I want to say an SR, a new one that we'd never seen before. We got that when it was on ship. Was something 1051, I believe it was, CR 1051 maybe. But we also did. Those are the things that we trained on, R390s and different transmitters, tune them in for the radios and stuff like that. That kind of stuff was it's hard for me to remember those things, How long did radio school last?
I think it was about 8 to 10 weeks, that we was doing that. We had our barracks. I do remember the barracks. There was people that were losing things, and we always there was always somebody on watch patrolling the barracks. And I remember I used to keep they issued you a blanket, and I would keep my blanket underneath my mattress. And don't ask me how they did it, but they got it while I'm in the rack. They got my blanket. And there was a lot of us that developed a habit of somebody touching me or whatever, I would swing at them or, almost get them, do something. And I got stopped a few times, and some of the other guys did too, because there was a lot of, they had, what do they call them? They were, can't think of, stewards. That they were mostly Filipinos, Asian, whatever. And seemed like there was always something going on between the radioman and the stewards. And stewards were always, we had one guy stabbed, I don't know, I remember that. I remember laying in my rack trying to study, and I kept hearing this click, 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 click noise, and I couldn't figure out what it was. Come to find out it was a cockroach walking across the floor. Now I'm talking about a cockroach probably as big as that, about that size right there.
Yeah.
I mean, they were huge.
Yeah.
And, you just always keeping your eye out because of that, because of the meanness going on,
From radio school, where'd you go?
I was in San Diego. They transferred me to Norfolk, Virginia on board the USS Long Beach.
USS Long Beach. What kind of ship is a Long Beach?
A nuclear-powered guided missile cruiser, the only one in the world at that time. We were of a task force of 3, the Bainbridge, the Long Beach, and the Enterprise. Okay,
What's the number of the Long Beach?
9,
So
CGN 9,
CGN 9.
yeah. And if you go down there and look at my car, it says LB CGN 9 on the back plate. Didn't know whether I could get that or not. But anyway,
What division were you assigned to?
what they called OR division at that
OR.
time, yeah.
What is OR?
It's communications.
Communications.
Yeah.
What was your duty on the Long Beach?
We kept communications with everybody. You know, we had CIC, we had the bridge, we had everybody, any communications that went out from the ship came through us, came through the, communications. We also received messages from all over the, from the admirals, from Com Fleet, yeah, all of them, whether it be Com 7th Fleet, didn't make any difference, we got it. And we did, I was rated top secret crypto. It was almost as high as you could go. I think there's 1 or 2, maybe a little higher, but that was my security clearance. And I worked for a while, I worked Radio Central, which did all the patchwork going from one division to another. And I also worked in what they call broadcast. We took in messages and, we had to file them, one thing that I do remember was sitting here thinking about it is doing the broadcast like we did. We were there when the Pueblo was hijacked, okay? And I saw the scramble that all the bigwigs, the admirals, not admirals, but the captain and all of them was in, tearing up secret codes and all that kind of stuff, because they got the Pueblo, and we was put on alert for that.
Where was the ship at that time?
It was off the coast of Vietnam.
Okay.
We were off the coast of Vietnam.
What watches did you stand on the Long Beach?
Port and starboard.
Okay.
12 on, 12 off.
Okay.
At either we were in Radio Central area where all the communications was on, or we was in the transmitter area, which was in the back of the ship, at the other end of the ship. And it was basically a port and starboard thing.
Where were your quarters on the ship?
The very front. Did I get seasick? Oh, yeah, I did. Oh, yes, I did. But that was coming out of Norfolk.
Yeah.
I got really sick.
Describe your quarters.
Well, we would go, when we went down the ladder, as they called it, and you made a sharp U-turn to the left, and the first rack on top was mine. The next rack in the middle was a guy named Monk, that's all I know him by. And then the bottom rack was a guy named Gary Stedman, okay? And then on the right was a rack, was Mike Kinzer, that's the one I talked to today. And I don't remember too many of the others, but there was racks, you just had pathways going from the racks, and then you had the shower area, and we would, there was two, yeah, I can only think of two areas where, maybe three, we would have card games, whether it be poker or hearts or spades or whatever, you know, to occupy our time, you know, whenever we could, you know, there was points in time when we was when we was in Vietnam, it was port and starboard. But when we was at sea away from there, it was three. We was all, you know, there was a three section duty, as they called it. So it was, I wouldn't trade it for the world.
Now, when you went on board at Norfolk, where'd the ship go?
It went, that's where I got seasick, by the way, when we left. We went from Norfolk to St. Thomas, Virgin Islands. I never got to get off because I was a boat, as they called it, a recruit, or not a recruit, but you know, I was low man on totem pole. So I had to stand watch. Everybody else got to go on board, you know, everybody else that was above me that could with them ashore. So, but the water was fantastic. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. You got to understand, here's this Okie from Tulsa, Oklahoma that couldn't know come here from Sikkim about anything, and he's naive as he can be, you know. And it was an experience because I'd never been done anything like that.
Had you seen the ocean before?
Oh yeah, probably, we lived in California for 7 years because of my allergies that I had, and we moved there so I could take care of myself, you know, back then.
Okay.
But anyway,
So from the Virgin Islands, where'd you go?
Panama Canal.
Tell me about the Panama Canal.
Panama Canal was really different. It was awful narrow. We started through that thing. I got to see a little bit of it, but I had the duty, so I had, you know, I was on watch, you know, but I got to see some of it. And I do remember we going through it, but we had to stop because the mast on the ship was too tall for going under the bridge at that time. So they had to stop and they had to lower the mast on the ship so they could get under the bridge. And
how do you lower the mast?
huh?
How do you lower the mast?
I don't know how they did it. I mean, you know, the nuts and bolts, I guess. I really don't know. But they, you know, you had antenna wires and all that kind of stuff. They had to disconnect, and yeah, I would think. But you know, it was just too tall. So from there, we went around, got through the canal, and it seems like, in my mind, we had to do some weaving and turning because of the, after you went through the canal, you had a lot of little islands you had to maneuver around and stuff like that. But we got out of there and we went to Long Beach, you know, this city of Long Beach. But when we got there, the Queen Mary was coming in at the same time. So we got to escort the Queen Mary in when she came in, you know, but, you know, Queen Mary's still there. You know, it's a whole different world now. But we would, you know, we escorted it in and we were right, you know, right there with her, you know, when we came in. And there was a lot of those cannons, you know, water cannons on tugboats, and it was for the Queen Mary and for us because we were the USS Long Beach, and that's where we were stationed, in Long Beach.
Long Beach was your home port?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, at that time.
Okay.
So anyway, we was there and we replenished, brought supplies aboard and stuff like that. Then we would go out for sea trials and stuff, getting ready. And we never really knew what was going to happen. But we kind of figured it out. You know, we was going over there. And we would go, we had two 5-inch 38 guns, but other than that it was all missiles. We had ASROC, we had Taylor, and we had Talos missiles.
What kind?
Talos. Yeah. And at that, you know, now what they had after we, you know, because, well, it's a long story. They changed things around well after I got off, you know, and a lot of us got off. Now the guys that I was on board ship with, there was like I want to say there was about four or five of us that all went to radio school together. Went to the same ship, you know. So, but anyway, they'd do target practice, but it was all 5-inch 38 stuff, you know, mostly that I can remember. And I remember the captain, it was Wallace at the time, he got real upset because the Marines were in charge of firing the 5-inch 38s. There's only two of them. And they were trying to hit, they were shooting at targets on San Clemente Island, okay? Well, they couldn't hit the island. They were shooting over the island. And they kept shooting over the island. They couldn't, you know, it was like we had Dummy and Dumber running the guns, you know. But eventually, you know, we did. And then they started shooting at these floating targets that they had in the water. We did that. And we did that for about, I want to say 3 or 4 months, you know. Come in for a while and go back out, come in, you know, and we'd stay out to sea for a week or two and come back in. Now, one thing that I don't know, I think you need to know about this ship is I was on board that ship for a little over 2 years. We never, not one time, did we refuel. You don't put, you know, we had the capabilities of diesel engines and, you know, that kind of stuff. We never used them because we was nuclear powered. We never refueled the whole time I was on board that ship. And it was different because other ships had to refuel, had to get another ship alongside you and they did the fuel thing. But we didn't do that. The only thing we had to do was replenish our supplies like food and you know, things of that nature, medical supplies.
Now, where would you resupply?
At sea.
At sea?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
How do you resupply at sea?
Well, what they do is they run these, and I know you've seen them in movies. They shoot these for lack of a better term, guns across to each other, tied to ropes, you know. And then they'd make the ropes would be thin, then they'd start getting heavier and heavier and heavier. And finally it's big enough where you can, they would, the one that I really remember that we refueled with was the USS Canberra. She was the only one that I can really remember. There was others I know, but that one stuck out on me. And they just transfer them over, you know, by line, you know, and then they would be on pallets, and they would take them wherever they needed to go. They had those conveyor things, rollers, you know, and they'd take them in different directions, you know, and to wherever they wanted to go. And I never had to do it, but I had watched it because, I take a break from my watch, because when we were at sea, we was either on watch or we was asleep. If we was on 3 duty, then we had a little extra time where we could do whatever needed to be done, cleaning up the barrack, the compartment, and whatever, get our, at the time I smoked, and, get your stuff, whatever you needed. And medical attentions and stuff like that.
When did the Long Beach go to Vietnam?
Ooh-wee. It was in 66. 1966 we went into, I know we went to Vietnam. It's the only thing the actual date I don't know.
What'd you do off the coast of Vietnam?
We were what they called PIRAZ station. It's spelled P-I-R-A-Z. And what we did was we would monitor all aircraft that went over Vietnam. I don't care what it was. And if they didn't check in with us, either their carriers got them or we got them. Because they had no business being there. And we, as the Long Beach, we shot down a couple,
You know what they were?
They were, all we know is, all I can tell you is, that I can remember is, the first one was, there was a couple of they were training pilots for North Vietnam. And they came over the date line that they were supposed to stay away from. The spotters said that that's what they were. But then we got 2 more, but the Terrier got that one. But the Talos got 2. And it was kind of a fluke, we'll say, because it was on the other side of Vietnam, and they had crossed the line, and there was 2 of them, and we had how it was done. I couldn't even tell you how they did it, but we could see it from Radio Shack. There was 2 of them flying, and they were side by side. And our Talos missile is a heat-seeking thing, and it couldn't determine which way to go because it was following these guys. So the only thing it could do, all it did was it went in the middle, and it exploded, and got both of them. That was that's the only things that I can remember, and we were told, do not communicate this with your families or anybody. It's top secret. Well, a week later, a buddy of mine gets a letter from his wife with a clipping of us shooting down this aircraft. It was crazy,
How do you tell friendly aircraft from the enemy?
They have, I want to say, responders on board the aircraft.
Okay.
And if they don't have the right codes or right, equipment to do that, then that's who they are. Other than that, I don't have a clue. It's just one of those things, But I remember we got pretty close to the shore, within 2 or 3 miles of North Vietnam. It was a sight to see. And I remember seeing in my memory, it was kind of an orange fog over Vietnam. And I thought, man, what is that stuff, you know? I've never seen anything fog that was orange. Well, later in life, I found out what it was. To me, it was Agent Orange, you know. And that's how we got our water. You know, we got our water was pumped in from the sea, was what do you call it, distilled or whatever, and then that's what we showered with, that's what we drank, that's what, everything, you know. And that's what we, you know, that's where the Agent Orange comes in. But my main thing was, I had I've got the diabetes, and that was contributed to there, you know. That was a big thing. And then I had some, you know, I got some other issues, you know.
Now, what happened when the Pueblo was captured by North Korea?
The only thing that like I told you, the only thing I can remember is all these, you know, we saw the message, it come over. But the only thing I remember is all of the captain, the executive officer, all the higher ups, you know, the top of the food chain, you might say, went all of the super top secret stuff was in the back. I remember it was in the back of the broadcast room, you know, and they were all in there and told us to get out, you know, and they were tearing stuff up, shredding it, you name it, they were doing it. Now, we were put on alert, you know, to be on alert, but that's all I remember, you know.
Did you go to general quarters?
No.
Okay.
No, we did. Have we been to general quarters? Yeah, we did a couple of times.
Where was your general quarters?
Well, the first one that I really remember is we went to general quarters. It scared the devil out of me because it never happened before. And we went and got on our stations, and come to find out, it was a weather phenomenon, you might say, some kind of a storm or something. Mm-hmm. And the reason we knew that's what it was is because, see, we had a destroyer that was with us at all the time while we was in Vietnam, in the North Vietnam waters. And the destroyer went through that, and we knew it was a weather thing. Mm-hmm. That was the first one. And the other one, it was when we had a few junkets, as they called them, came close to the ship, you know. We didn't know what was there, you know, what was going on, and so they went to general quarters to make sure that everything was going to be all right. Other than that,
civilian boats?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they were Vietnamese boats. We'll just say that.
Were they North Vietnamese?
We don't know.
We don't know.
You know, you couldn't tell one from the other.
Okay. Now, where was your general quarters?
Mine was in the transmitter room.
Okay.
You know, we had to man transmitters and make sure they stayed up all the time as best we could. So that's.
Did the Long Beach ever dock in Vietnam?
No, we anchored.
You anchored.
We went in. I remember we went into Da Nang. We went into the harbor. Went into Da Nang harbor, and they wanted the communications people, our communications people, and the communications people on base to swap to see how each other operated. So, you know, kind of get an idea of what was going on. And they did that, and then they had to quickly stop it because they were bombing the communication station there, okay? And we had to get out of there because, again, we were, at that time, we were one of the top security ships in the fleet.
Who was bombing the station?
Vietnam. North Vietnam.
Okay.
And we just had to get away, you know. And I remember us doing a, you know, turnaround and getting out of the harbor.
Mm-hmm.
I do remember seeing these little speedboats that I'm pretty sure there's the same thing Jim was talking about, that were all over the place. I mean, they were running in all different directions. And some of them were staying beside us, some of them were just zipping around, just zipping around. I mean, they looked like high-speed boats, you know, but they were black, you know. And we was amazed to watch that, but they ordered us in, you know, so we couldn't watch it because they didn't know what would happen, you know, as far as anybody get shot at or whatever, you know. And we never, as far as communications, we never carried a gun. You know, we didn't have to carry a gun. And so that was our deal with being in the harbor.
Was your ship ever fired on?
Not to my knowledge, no. No, I can't recall that happening. Now, there was that one time that we thought we were being fired on, but they couldn't get close enough, and the carriers took care of them. So, you know, we did some, you know, we did travel around. Got to spend a lot of time in the Philippines. We did Hong Kong, did that once. Australia, we went twice. And like I told you earlier, I'm a shellback.
Mm-hmm. Tell me about crossing the equator.
Okay, crossing the equator, that was a first time was hell, was the best way I can put it. They had, the deck of the ship had non-skid on it. You know, it's like black sandpaper, you know, glued to the deck. And we had to crawl on our hands and knees. Now, we were in what they called diapers. So it was bare knees, okay, on this, you know. And we would crawl on this deck, and we had these shellbacks that we were called pollywogs, by the way, was hitting us with these, they were tubes of canvas stuffed with sand, and they'd beat the heck out of us, you know. And we'd crawl through there, and we had to kiss Neptune's baby's belly, which was interesting. They had axle grease, and then you had to kiss his belly button, and then we had you had to swallow a couple of raw oysters. Never had one in my life, so I wasn't sure about that one either. And then they fix your hair up real nice. They didn't cut it. They put something in it, you know, like grease or whatever in your hair. And then the infamous garbage chute. You go up this little chute, canvas chute, and you go up, and then all of a sudden you're in this pit of garbage, literally garbage. The cooks, mess deck people would save all the garbage for a certain length of time. And this pit was probably about 6 by 6 by 6. And you dove in. You didn't have a choice. You dove in. And then you had to figure your way out. And I kept my eyes closed the whole time. And I couldn't get out. So finally I said, Jim, you have to open your eyes and see where in the heck you're at. I opened my eyes, and the first thing that's staring me square in the face is a used grapefruit. Well, I found this rope. That you're supposed to grab hold of this rope, help pull you out. And you got pulled out and down, and you got out of the chute, the other end, the chute, which was full of garbage because of the people that had been there before me. But anyway, I've got all this. I got some of this stuff on pictures, But anyway, then when you got done with that, if they if they really wanted to get you, they'd say, okay, you go back, start over again, and you went through the whole process again. You might do it 2 or 3 times. Of course, I was lucky. I only went through it once, and that was enough. So, anyway, when you got done, you just stripped naked, period, naked. You ain't got a stitch of clothes on, and you just throw it overboard. Because it was worthless. You didn't want to wash it. So anyway, and then when we went across the second time, went to Sydney the first time, and when we went across the second time on the second cruise, I was the showback, and I got to do the same thing to them as the guys had done to me, except I was the beater instead of the beatee.
How long you on Long Beach?
I was on there for a little over 2 years.
2 years.
Yeah.
What's your best memory of the Long Beach?
I'm going to say what I just described to you and the guys. Mm-hmm. To this day, and they're dying off, in 2002, I took it upon myself to start trying to contact some of these guys. I had no clue where they were at. Some of them I did, thought I did. But anyway, I found several of them. And we had a get-together in 2002 in Columbus, Ohio. And we tried to do it about every 2 years, But since then, we're getting to the point where we can't travel too far driving. None of us can. Some of us can, but most of us can't. And we've had 1, 2, 3, 4. We've had 4 guys. I've lost 4 guys in the last 2 years. Last year we lost 2 within 2 months of each other, and it was all due to cancer, and it was, again, I got pictures of these guys, and all of them mean a lot to me,
What's your worst memory of the Long Beach?
I would say they had us remove, there was 4 20-foot, I want to say 20-foot whips, antennas, towards the front of the ship. They wanted us to remove them and paint them and put them back at sea, okay? And scary, because we're going, we're in the middle of nowhere, and then we would have to go and then kind of touch them up, because we would mess them up pretty good trying to get them back together. And the bad part about it was it was fairly cold, and it was misty, salt misty. And you brush the paint on, and you go back and brush the paint off. It was on, is an on-off thing, and we was trying to figure out how to do that. Well, they finally figured out that we couldn't do it. It couldn't be done. We'd have to wait till we pulled in, and then we'd have to clean them off, get rid of the salt, and then paint them. That was a pretty bad deal, because I was, we were trying to do our best, and we just couldn't.
Where are these antennas?
On the front of the ship. I've got a pic. I don't have a picture. I've got the actual ship model at the house.
Okay.
So
when'd you leave Long Beach?
November 19th, 1968. 4 years, 2 months, and 19 days.
What'd you do when you left Long Beach?
Well, back up a little bit. I used to drink a lot. Okay. And guys would make fun of me, and I'd make fun of them about the drinking and stuff. And when I got off the ship as a civilian, I went to one of the guys' houses that his wife, where that his wife was. And he said, "Why don't you have a drink?" I said, "Nope, don't want one." He looked at me kind of funny. He said, "You don't want a drink?" And I said, "Nope." He said, "How come?" I said, "Well, when I was on board ship, we took care of each other because we were together. But now that I'm me by myself, the only one that's going to take care of me is me. And I'm not, no, I don't want one."
Yeah.
So anyway, I stayed in Long Beach for about 3 days, and then I came home, and that was, it was a different time, I didn't get any of the baby killer stuff. I didn't get any of that because I really didn't talk too much about it,
Now, when are you discharged?
You mean totally?
Yeah.
I can't tell you. 2 years after that, I would say.
Okay.
They wanted me to go. I do remember that they wanted me. I went back then. You had to register for the draft,
Yes.
even after you got out. So
Did
I
you leave
said,
the Navy when you left the Long Beach?
"Do what?"
Did you leave the Navy when you left the Long Beach? Did
Yeah.
you get out of the Navy?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I do remember getting back. I went to register the draft in Tulsa, and I stopped by the recruiter's office. I said, "Well, I'm gonna go see this." His name was Chief Bennett. I want to go see him. Well, he's gone. He's gone because it's been 4 years. And so I was talking to the guy. I told him what I'd done. He says, "Well, what are you going to do now?" I said, "Well, the very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get my GED," because I didn't have a diploma back then. And he said, "Well, I can fix that for you." I said, "Well, Chief tried to do that, and I flunked it." He said, "Well, let me see if I can set it up for you to take it again." So he called the school thing, what do you call it? Where all the school superintendents and all that, the main office was. And he said, "I got a gentleman here who wants to get his GED. He said, "Want to know my name?" They looked it up, come back on the phone and says, "Well, he passed that over 4 years ago." I was mad, but I was glad. Because they did some scrupulous, I guess that's a word, scrupulous things back then. They lied to you. And he told me that if I passed the GED, I could get anything I wanted. Well, first off, he couldn't do that. I didn't know that at the time. I'm dumb. I'm from Oklahoma. And anyway, I'd passed it. I'd already passed it. So,
Where'd you go to work?
I went to work first in carpet and tile. Worked for CNC Tile and Carpet Company. And I worked there for, oh golly, I don't know how many years. I would say 15, 16 years I did that. I was a helper, started out. Then I worked my way up. I became a journeyman. I used to lay tile and carpet and all that stuff. But I couldn't, it wasn't steady work because it was construction. So I got out of it and I went to work for a place called W.C. Norris, which was downtown. They made oil field equipment. I said, man, I'm going to retire from here. Well, I worked there 7 years and they shut the place down. So I went back into the carpet business. Biggest mistake I ever made in my life, because I couldn't do what I used to do. It hurt. Everything hurt me. So I did. See, where was it I went to? My wife at the time, we divorced, and I went to work for this place. It was a circuit board company. They made the actual printed circuit board. They didn't put the components on it. They just made the board. And I was there. I worked my way up. I was a night shift supervisor for that. And a friend of mine that I had been working with at W.C. Norris says, hey, come on down to Florida. I got something for you. I went down there. I'm single. I went down there, and I liked it. So I started, I working there, but I had to come back because I had my stuff here, and at the time I had a girlfriend. Well, I married the girlfriend, and we moved everything to Palm Harbor, Florida. Well, I got laid off from that after about a year and a half. And I was starting to have second thoughts, but then I went back to work for them doing something else, and I was assistant manager for that. They did the tail section to a 155 millimeter shell, and we just made the tail section. We didn't put any gunpowder or anything like that in it. We just made the casing for it. And when that ended, I got let go again. I said, I'm done. I said, I can't stand this no more. So we came back, and I started working selling cars, selling boats, trying to make a living there. My wife was working in a circuit board shop. She was good at that at the time, my wife at the time. And finally, I was selling the boats, and his job came open for working for a place called LMI Finishing, doing finishing and chemical milling of airplane parts. And I was there for for a few years. I don't know how many. See, it was 2004. I went there in 1998. So however long that is. And about 2004, it was 2003, I had a stroke. And it was due to LMI, in my mind, because there was a lot of pressure for me, because I was on the night shift. There for a while there was two of us that was supervisors, but one supervisor left and just left me. And I had to chemical milling, I had the paint shop, I had the shipping, I had the receiving, I had, it was all me, And the people on the day crew was pressuring me to get more done, do this, do that, do this. And they kept taking people away from me and supposedly trying to make things better for me. So I said, I had the stroke, and then I tried going back to work, and I couldn't do it. And they finally had to let me go. And I understood that, because they had to have somebody to fill that spot, because I kept going and not,
Would you join the Navy again?
Right now, no. No, because of all the changes that they've done, I don't think they've really made up their mind what uniform they want to use,
I'd like to do a word association. I'll give you some words and you give me a reaction.
Okay.
The first one is boot camp.
Yuck. Okay.
Radio school.
Interesting.
USS Long Beach.
Beautiful ship.
Panama Canal.
Awesome.
Vietnam.
Tragedy.
Ho Chi Minh.
Communism.
Lyndon Johnson.
A good man.
Richard Nixon.
A crook.
How do you want to be remembered?
How do I want to be remembered? Caring, a caring person of my family and all that I'm around.
Well, sir, this is an excellent interview. I want to thank you for your service and thank you for the interview.
Okay.
And again, this is February 4th, 2020. My name is Joe Todd. This has been an interview with Jimmie Pirtle in Broken Arrow, Oklahoma. Thank you.
Thank you.